Hi everybody, it's Kevin at Bear Creek Honey, and it's December 11th, 2018, and today we are going to be making candy boards. This is supplemental feed for your wintering bees, pretty much for those of us who have extended winter seasons. Our winter here lasts from November through April, so at times the bees will start running out of food, and we want to get them some feed on. Now today the candy boards that I'm going to be making up, or the candy that I'm going to be making up, has a pollen substitute, but you definitely don't have to do that. You can just put straight sugar mixture in and pack it in, and that'll be good enough for the bees for now. The winter solstice is the time when queens start reverting to start slowly starting a brood nest again. December 21st, after the winter solstice, shortest day of the year. But to be honest, the bees should have pollen in their hives. They also should have plenty of honey. You know, they just went into winter. You know, November, you fed them all October and September, so they should have plenty of supplies. So these candy boards are just being made up so that at the end of January, February, somewhere around there, you can take a look at your bees, and if they start running a little light, you can provide them this supplemental feed, and it also includes pollen substitute, and that will also help them with their improving their brood nest. Now, if you're just a honey guy and that's all you really care about, and you're not interested in building up your bees really early in the spring, well, then you could probably skip the pollen substitute. You probably don't need it. It surely doesn't hurt. The bees themselves don't really consume it. They will make it into bee bread and feed it to larvae. They will also feed it to the queen, and that will stimulate her to start laying eggs, laying the brood nest. The bees themselves just need carbs for the winter survival, and carbs are simply your sugar, your honey and sugar. That's what they need. That's what they like. Like I said, protein. The protein supplement powder is pretty much for brood production. So that being said, the winter solstice is coming up December 21st. That's the time when queens slowly start kicking into gear and start building a brood nest. You know, it's the shortest day of the year. Days get longer from there on, and like I said, it's not a magic day, but that's the day that people generally feel that the queens will start building their nest, or thereabouts. You know, it could be sometime in January. It just depends on your region. Again, these candy boards are really for those of us in the northern climates. You know, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North, South Dakota, Montana, those areas where we have really, and Canada for that matter, where we have really long winters. November, January, February, March, and then getting into April. Last year, it snowed on the 14th of April. We got over 20 inches of snow on the 20th day. So, you know, the bees weren't getting out and weren't collecting any pollen or nectar or anything from any sources. So, getting feed on them is really important. A supplemental feed. Again, this recipe that I'm going to be doing today is with pollen substitute. You definitely do not need it. Two of the things that I'm going to show you today are the candy boards themselves. Now, this candy board here I bought this from a manufacturer. It's 2 inches wide strips, and this is for this fits the frame of a 10-frame langstroth hive. You can see it has mesh on the bottom, number 4 welded wire mesh, or hardware cloth as they call it, and I have added this 1/2 inch polyisocyanurate, or what do they call this? Just foil face foam insulation. But I added it because we're going to be making candy, hot poured candy. So you really need a base for that. You can use plywood board, whatever you want. If you were to just wanted to fill these full of just packed sugar and water, then you don't have to go and boil your sugar, or boil your sugar down and your water down to make the candy. You can actually just get the sugar and water damp, put a little vinegar in there, and then just pack it in into these boards. And that is exactly what the hardware cloth was intended for this to be set directly on the hive this way. I'm pouring this in here. This is going to be, it's going to be a 230-degree candy, sticky, hot candy, and this is going to actually flip upside down, and this is going to become my top cover. Okay, one side of it has an entrance hole and exit hole. It also acts as your vent hole for your hive. Very, very important. Now this has insulation. This is only like R3 value, so this isn't much. I still put my 1.5-inch foam. I will have right directly under my my top cover, but that's how this will go. This will sit right on top of your frames, your top box, and then your you can put your foam insulation on top of that, and then set your cover down. If you don't want to do that, you can put your top cover in, and the reason I say that that's what you probably should do if you're not going to have the extra insulation is because you want this hole to be below the lip of your top cover, because you want to use this to vent moist air. The sugar itself will actually absorb the dampness from the hive, and it won't condensate, so it'll actually act as an absorbent, which is a great thing. But any excess you want to vent out the hive, and you also want to give the bees an escape. Like I said, you don't have to use you can pull your original inner cover off and put this in, and this will act as your inner cover. Excuse me if I'm getting my terms mixed up. I meant inner cover, not top cover. So this is one. Like I said, I bought this. This is 2-inch shims, and it fits a langstroth hive. Now this is something I had in my garage itself. These were emery shims, and I had a bunch of these made up that I was using, but I wasn't using them anymore. So instead of just not using them, I doubled them up and made a candy board. I just stapled them together and made a candy board. I put the bottom in. Now this obviously does not have the hardware cloth, so this is meant for the poured candy and not the hard candy. Okay. You definitely want to have this base. Like I said, this candy is hot, and I cut this tight. I think it was 18 5/8 the inside dimensions by 14 3/8, and you want to get this in tight, because when you start pouring the candy in, that candy will pour out. And I trial and error. I just used the hardware itself without the solid base, and I put some wax paper down on my table here, and man, oh man, did I have an absolute blowout mess on my hands that I had to deal with. So again, everything is trial and error, and I'm trying to show you what I do to get these going. They also, you know, like I said, I bought. You can make these yourself. You know, 2-inch, it's rabbited edges, just screwed together. You probably can glue and staple them together. It's just whatever you have handy. 2 inches is good. They say that these, without the 1/2-inch insulation, will hold about 20 pounds of sugar, 16 pounds of sugar, somewhere around there, 16 to 20 pounds. Now I've got 1/2 inch. I've taken a 1/2 inch out already. Because of the bottom insulation, and so I'm gonna just go with 10 pounds of candy for this one. This is, again, what you're gonna see is a trial, because I haven't actually poured one with this insulation in, but this candy is very, very, very sticky, and I want to warn you about that. If it drips and drizzles and gets all over the place, it sticks, I mean, hard to everything, and you have to chisel it off when you're done. So be mindful of what tables you use. Protect what you have. You don't want to get your wife pissed at you. Like I said, I had a mess. I had it all over the floor. Luckily, I have 2 vacuum cleaner dogs that tended to like the stuff, so they got it up off the floor for me pretty good. I bought this one I think I bought these from Brushy Mountain Bees, which unfortunately I think has gone out of business since then. I bought two of these, and I also bought ones for my nukes. These are just a smaller version of the same thing, and so I'm gonna make these for a couple of my 5-frame nukes that I have. If your bees are, like I said, if your winter is light, you probably don't need anything like this. But if you have a harsh winter and your bees are running light, that's what these are for. This is quite a process, so making these up one at a time, one each day, you know, it's probably all you're going to want to do, you know, one a weekend, and then just store them. Don't store them in your garage unless you have them sealed up in a plastic bag or something that the mice can't get to, because mice are going to love your sugar water, or your sugar, or your pollen substitute, and sugar patties. So you can store them down in your basement, out in your porch, you know, someplace where mice and dogs or whatever aren't going to get to them, but they'll store really well. So without further ado, I think we're going to get started. This, like I said, this one is the Emery Shim one, and if you notice, it's actually not anywhere near as thick as this. I think this one was 2 inches. I think this was only 1.5 inches. So this is not going to take as much fondant or as much candy as this one will. But I'm going to start off with 10 pounds here and just see where it levels off. Now we do want a little bit of gap, a little bit of gap here. So when we flip it over, this isn't mashing your bees. That's the important part. You want the bees to be able to come up and just take the candy as they need it. After a while, they start getting into it. It'll start falling down, but it ain't gonna fall down in one big massive chunk on top of them, and that's kind of important as well. So I'm gonna see where the level comes up, and if 10 pounds works for this one, I'll pour 10 pounds in this one as well. But for now, we're gonna work on this. This is another one that's again, it's half the size, so this one will probably be only 4 pounds of sugar. And we'll go from there. Another thing that we're going to do is this entrance. We're going to put a block of wood here, 2x4, just to make a little block so that the bees can still use this and use this upper entrance, and airflow can still get through. So we do want to block that off before we pour this candy in. So anyways, without further ado, let's go over to my stove, and we'll make up some some candy, and what you're going to need is either some corn syrup, like K-Row, not high fructose corn syrup. This is 0 grams of high fructose corn syrup, if you can see that. So K-Row is the type that you want, just the white corn syrup. They do sell this in generic form, but you do not want the high fructose. Another thing that you can do and make this up ahead of time is you can just create 2-to-1 sugar water. And you're going to need about a cup and 3/4 of of this, or the 2-to-1 sugar water. You're going to need regular water, and you're going to need a 10-pound bag of sugar or a 4-pound bag of sugar. You know, I'll put the recipe in the video notes below, so take a look, and then you'll just have to adjust it for however the size of your project, your candy boards, for whatever size you use. Okay. A temperature gauge is also helpful to get the candy up to about 220 to 230 degrees. A scale is also good, a kitchen scale for weighing your pollen, because you're going to need about 1.25 pounds of pollen substitute for this recipe, and that comes in at the end. But I'll show you pretty much step by step on what we're doing. So let's go over to the stove, and we'll get cracking on this. Before I start, 2 things. Before you grab your pot off the stove, put oven mitts or gloves on. This candy is 230 degrees and very, very, very hot, and when it gets on your skin, it will stick and scald you, and you can't get it off, and it will burn you. So wear either some cotton gloves, not your little rubber gloves that you might use for beekeeping or barbecuing or whatever, but some type of cotton gloves, work gloves, or oven mitts work as well. Glasses, safety glasses, some kind of glasses also work. Again, that stuff is really sticky. It doesn't usually splash much, but you know what? You never know, accidents do happen. So just be mindful that when you're taking it off the stove to wherever you're pouring, that your children are not around, because if you get some on your skin and it gets hot, you don't want to drop it and splash it all over your kids, your pets, or whatever. So just be really mindful that the candy itself can be a safety hazard when it's hot. Number 2, when we pour it in, you're going to be leaving it alone to cool for 3 to 4 hours. It takes about a half an hour of time to get the mixture up to temperature and to pour it. So keep that in mind when you're wanting to do this project. Get everything prepared ahead of time. Get your boards prepared as to how you want them, and protect your tables however you want to protect them. So those are a couple of things just to keep in mind before you get started. So again, let's go over to the stove and we'll go take a look. Okay, so what we're going to start out with is a pot big enough to handle the job for the following. We're going to go with 10 pounds of granulated sugar, and then we're going to go with 1.25 cups of corn syrup. And now you can use either this K-Row corn syrup with it says 0 grams of high fructose corn syrup. You don't want high fructose, or you can go with 2-to-1 sugar water that you make up ahead of time. Now that's what I made up. I made up some 2-to-1 sugar water, just makes it easier. We're gonna go with um, 2.5 cups of water, and at the end, after we reach about 230 degrees, stirring occasionally over medium-high heat, we're going to add about 1.25 pounds of pollen substitute. I use Ultrabee. You can probably use whatever you use, and I guess you can take a look at your package to see what they suggest as far as you know, how much you're adding. This is kind of my recipe. It's kind of working for me here, so it sets up real nice. So just like I said, figure it out for yourself. If you're gonna put this on your bees now or before this, December 21st, even in beginning of January, I'd say skip the pollen substitute. But after that, good time to put it in there. I'll also have a recipe later on in the year where I'm going to make pollen patties, which is going to be I'm going to make about 30 pounds of pollen patty, and then it's going to kind of gel up together, and then I'll slice it and put like 2 pounds on each hive for in the spring. Probably sometime in March I'm going to be sticking them on the hives, so stay tuned for that. So we're going to go with 1.5 cups of the corn syrup, and we're just going to pour that in there to start. Now the reason I put that in there first is because if you crank up the heat on sugar, you're going to burn the sugar, and it's going to stick to the bottom of the pan right away, and you're going to have a lot of big dark chunks. So we're going to just crank it on here, and then we can add you can probably add your water now too if you want, but I'll add that a little bit later here. But you want to add your 10 pounds of sugar there. And then we're going to go with 2.5 cups of water. Now you can start mixing this before you turn on the heat. That's entirely up to you. Okay, now what we're going to do is after this has been slow boiling, got up to slow boil after 30 minutes. After we got it up to a slow boil for about 30 minutes, we're going to take a temp on it and see what we got. Now I am up to 229.6 degrees, 230. That's exactly where we want to go with it. Okay, so I measured out. This is 1.5 pounds of pollen substitute, Ultrabee. I'm going to dump in. And I'm just going to whisk that in real good until it becomes real creamy consistency. And just, I use a whisk to try to get out the clumps. That's the whole idea behind it. So again, it's a little messy sometimes, so watch yourself. You get a little aggressive, and then you just do just what I did. And then you get this pollen substitute all over everything, and then your wife is really pissed at you for messing up her kitchen. Sort of turns a brown, pale yellow, I guess. Almost looks like beeswax when it dries. Now this pollen substitute, I don't even know what's in it, to be honest with you. Flour and animal products, and it's got 60% protein by weight. That's what the instructions say. The bees will consume it when they don't have anything else, but if they do have pollen, they won't touch it. Try to scrape the sides down, and like I said, just try to get it in there real nice. Now you know, we got 10 pounds of sugar in there, along with probably, well, what, 1.5 pounds of 2-to-1 sugar water, and then you know, 2 cups of water is probably another pound, and some of that's evaporated, and then now 1.5 pounds. So we're probably up there around, oh, I would guess 13 pounds, somewhere in there, of candy. And that's exactly what we're looking for right there. Want to turn off the heat. Don't want to get it too hot. That's exactly what we want. I've gotten rid of all the clumps, and it's very well mixed in. So now we'll go over here, and we'll take a look at the candy board. Here's the candy board. Now this is another one with a mesh bottom, and I've got the polyisocyanurate foil faced in there, so it's not going anywhere. It's a tight fit. I poured these ones, a couple hours ago, I think, and they're still very, very warm, but they've set up, and you can pick them up and sort of see the bottom. I'm not going to flip them over right now, but you can kind of get the point. About this time, you really want to get these blocks out if you can, so that it's easier to get them out. Deal. So there. Alright, so I'm going to put that right in front of there, and now we are ready for the candy before it cools down too much. Okay, so there's our candy, and there's really not much to this. It kind of self-levels because it is so liquid. But you just pour it into the form, just like this. And it actually fills it up quite a bit there. That's quite amazing, actually. So that's good. I'm going to grab my whisk real quick and scrape out the bottom of this. And that's all there is to it. We're gonna sit and let this cool for the next I don't know, 2 or 3 hours. So okay, we've got our candy boards completed, and I got my my nukes done, and I got this one. I've got some more to make, but you get the general idea. These are hard, literally hard as rocks. Yeah, but the bees will lick them down, and when you put them on. I did a little chicken scratch to figure out how much these cost me. The 10-pound bag of sugar cost me $4.75. Ultrabee pollen substitute costs, if you buy a 1-pound can, it's $10. If you buy a 10-pound pail, it is about $3 a pound. If you buy a 50-pound bag, it drops down to $1.80, $2 or $1.90, $2 a pound roughly. So that's what I bought. I bought a 50-pound bag of Ultrabee for $90, and it'll, you know, it'll, as long as you keep it in a cool dry place, it'll keep for forever, or for as long as you need it. But you know, it's £1.25 for that, so you're looking at, you know, probably $2.25 for that. So I'm up to $7 right there between the sugar and the pollen substitute. I added the 2-to-1 sugar in there, which is just 2 cups of that. I mean, that's probably another, I don't know, 25 cents for that. So I'm up to $7.25. The Celotex, which is the isocyanurate on the back, the foil-faced 1/2 inch, ran me $12 for a 4x8 sheet, and I am able to get probably about 15 candy boards out of that. And obviously those are those are going to be reusable every year, but even if you add that in, that turns out to be about 80 cents a candy board. Again, the wooden candy board itself, you're going to use this over and over and over again, and you'll probably be able to, you know, if you get out of beekeeping, you'll probably be able to sell it to somebody that needs some equipment. So I wouldn't even count that as a cost, but doing the candy board itself, 13, you know, probably 12 pounds overall weight of product to give to your bees. 10 pounds of sugar, 10 and a quarter with the sugar water, 10 and a half with the sugar water, I would guess. £1.25 of the pollen substitute, 12 pounds, you know, water in there, whatever. You're somewhere around 13 pounds of product, and that fits. I mean, that was perfect for one 10-frame langstroth hive, and it also was perfect for 2 5-frame nukes, and just want to show you how this works. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're just going to take this on your 10-frame and you're just going to set it straight down, just like that. And there is your bee hole right there. I've pulled the wooden boards. Now, when you do that, it is going to break apart a little bit on you. I don't know. Maybe I'll work on that a little bit and soak them in water, or put some vegetable oil on there just so they're they don't stick to the wood so bad when you pull them out. I actually need a pair of pliers to pull these out. That's how hard it was. But again, these candy boards will work great for you. They will store great for you. When you get, I already mentioned this, but when you get ready to set these on your hive, you will take some of your honey and you will squirt it on there just a little bit. You can smear it on there just a little bit, and just take and dust the pollen substitute on there, and that'll attract the bees to it, because the pollen will be sticky, and then once they get up there, they'll just start eating it, and they'll just, as they need it, they'll take it apart. You know, in the springtime, if the bees haven't taken it all, and you want to take this off, you know, you'll take it off, bang it a couple of times, it'll come apart, and take the little chunks and stick those right between your frame, or right on top of your frames, and the bees will take it down as they need it. It's full of sugar. Now, this is unlike a pollen patty, where the majority of this is sugar, the carbs, the carbohydrates. That's the majority of this. 10 pounds of this is straight sugar. 1 pound of it is pollen patty. When you make a pollen substitute, when you make pollen patties, you're probably going to go, I would guess, almost 50-50, half sugar, half pollen, and that's what I'm going to be making in the spring after these are all off the hives. But you know, for now, we'll have to see how it is. These I made from the Emery shims. They're a little shallower, and I'm going to guess that 10 pounds or 13 pounds will actually fill 2 of these. That's what I'm hoping for anyways. And even if it's shy, so what? But these will be just a lighter version of these. So I got 2 more of those to do, and then that'll be it. I've got to build some more candy boards this winter, and then I'll be making them as we go along. But anyways, I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you use it on your beehives. And if you do, give me some feedback. Let me know how it worked out for you. And if you got any comments or improvements or whatever, leave it in the comments below. Don't forget, give me a thumbs up on the page, on the video, to help me in search rankings, and please subscribe to the channel so you can see what I'm up to as far as my apiary goes. I love talking to all of my followers. So until next time, happy beekeeping.